Hey, what's up guys? Kyle here. I know you could be absolutely anywhere right now, but you're hanging out with me for a few, so I super duper appreciate that. How's your October been? I'm highlighting some sales this past weekend, and I gotta say October has been awfully brutal to me. About less than half of the sales that I do any other time of the year. This past weekend, 800 bucks in sales, roughly 800 bucks, 20 items. It's just not a great weekend. However, I'm not going to complain too much because, the fact that I'm out here reselling for a living is pretty magical. So I want to highlight some stuff because that's how we discover, that's how we learn with each other. But I also want to talk about, I know I'm going to get a lot of smack talk in the comments, and that's fair game. I want to talk about how I ship things, because I think every year it's saving me hundreds, if not thousands, doing a particular thing, which I want to talk about and hear your opinion on. So let's hop into some shipping and sales. And being that it's only 10 days from Halloween, I'm excited to report I only have 2 costumes left. I don't know if this one will actually sell. It's just like a very generic cheerleader costume, but hey, I wasn't sure if this one would sell. So these are the last 2. If you've been following along, this used to be, 10 to 15 different costumes, and you're probably sick of me saying it, but I got these in the spring from a Goodwill. It was having like a 75 or 90% off sale of all their Halloween and Christmas stuff. So these were super cheap. Some of these like $1.25, $1.50. So I don't have much into them. They're not selling for that high of a price. I think the highest one I had was 50 bucks. So that was a good score. But like this one, for example, is headed out today, being 10 days away from Halloween. And I think it sold for around 15 bucks plus shipping. I'll put it up on the screen here, but only one left, and they're disappearing before your very eyes. We got a couple blind boxes. You guys have seen me talk about these blind boxes. Pop Mart in particular. I talk a lot about Pop Mart, but this one I don't think is a Pop Mart. And I find these, you can find these like at garage sales and thrift stores, because I don't think people really understand what they necessarily. I don't really understand what they are, other than random expensive toys that people collect and probably will regret spending in like a year or two. But this one was actually open when I got it, and it's a blind box. Different ones are worth different money. And if you go on in eBay and look up Sunny Angel and look at some of the prices on these things, if you get the right one, some seem to be like super rare, like chase ones. I don't know if like Secret and Robbie, maybe they're like really rare, but some of these things can go for like $50+. I could be wrong, but I think I even saw some like in $75 or $100. They just me being super rare. Anyway, this one was open. I guess the person wasn't happy with what was inside, so I picked this up for, I think it's only like $1 in a dollar bin. And the tiger one, it sold for 15 bucks pretty quickly, as they are really popular. Not something I typically love to do, sell things under 20 bucks. But when I can see something's really popular and there's a quick turnaround time in the sale, that's when I still consider, I make rules to those exceptions of small money sales if it's going to sell really quick and I can make decent margins. That said, this other Pop Mart, these things have been sitting for a while. I was actually about to remove these from my eBay store because they've been sitting so long. But again, another blind box type thing. Doesn't seem like this Skull Panda one, it happens to be very popular. But it is it finally sold, I should say. I think I had them up for like 35 or 40 bucks. Took a best offer on the first one, 25 bucks plus shipping. So happy to see these go. I got one left, and I'll probably give it another month or so before it ends up at the flea market. And usually when you have quantities of things, I have noticed, and let me know if this is true for you guys too. When you have multiple quantities of things, once one sells, it seems the others sell at a more rapid pace. I think eBay kind of, the algorithm, once they see that fewer are left in a quantity mode, I don't know what goes on, but it seems like it's like the fear, like FOMO starts to come in, and people are seeing like, hey, there's only a limited quantity left. So I don't know if eBay promotes it or people just get like FOMO and buy more. Petzl, which is climbing equipment brand, and this is a really cool sale because it looks pretty unassuming. It's some sort of, I'm not a rock climber, but it's called a rack, and climbing device, and some of these can go for big money. This one sold, I think I put it up for $79.99, took a best offer of 70 bucks, which is just just incredible. And I think this is definitely something, obviously climbers are going to know this brand. So if you find these at garage, I don't think you'll really find a high quality, good brand like this too often at garage sales that are reasonably priced, because people know what they have. However, this is the kind of thing that I think might show up at thrift stores where they just don't really know what it is, and they'll put it out on the shelf. It's like one of those things that I think it's, like I said, it's kind of unassuming, and I don't know if they take the time to really research or see what this is, but they might just put it out. One thing, it's all lonely in this basket, so it's going to head off to its new home and not feel so lonely in a isolated basket. These are some Frontier Shady, these are called Shady Rays. They're just ski goggles. Sold for a good price, 40 bucks plus shipping. They're not super popular if you look up Shady Rays on eBay. Got a good old-fashioned iron. Let me know, do you guys still use irons? I haven't used one of these things in probably like 30 years. Like the last time I went to like a job interview and needed all the wrinkles out of my teenager shirt. But this sold pretty decent money. I think I put it up for 50 as the box is, you know, it's an open box sale. It looks like to be an Amazon return, but it is brand new in the box. And I did test it just to make sure it works. And I think I took a best offer of 40 plus shipping, but cool little item to sell. Aliso, $50 for an iron, which you can also go to like Walmart and get, I'm sure, something that does the same job for like 15 or 20 bucks. But hey, we got in the pants bucket. You know, everything is always in here except for pants, but right on top, this sold really quickly. This is like one of those I don't know what called third party, you know, they're not fake video games, but they're like these handheld games that have a bunch of different games on it from the past, old Nintendo DS, maybe Game Boy. I'm not exactly sure what's on this one, but it looks very similar to a Game Boy, and it has, you know, hundreds or thousands of games. And I think people can also go on and to program these things and to have, like, you know, jailbreak them, so to speak, and put on even more games. But these things out there, they look like they're just generic, like overseas knockoff products, but they're actually gaming systems, and they do really well. If you ever see model numbers, they start with RG on these things. And that's, if you ever see this picture, model number RGs, and different models have different values. This one sold, I think, for like 40 something bucks. I'll put it up on the screen. Yeah, 40 bucks plus shipping, and it sold really fast. So look out for those. And then we got some actual pants here, which is these kettle, I don't know how to say it actually. I think they're called like kettle, and these mountain pants. And good sale here. These are new. They don't actually have tags, but they are brand new. And these sold, I think, for around 50 bucks. And this is obviously a fantastic sale because, again, this came from an unclaimed male. And I've never heard of this brand, so if it's new to you, awesome. We discovered this together, this kettle mountain apparel. And I did try them on actually because I like pants. I like pants that cover my knees because I fall a lot like a baby. And these are really high quality. You can feel the quality. And I took a best offer, 50 bucks. And again, I only have like, I don't know, 50 cents, $1, something like that. Finally, the last Funko I have is this Daniel Stern Home Alone, and it is autographed, and it sat for a really long time. And usually things, I guess this is kind of seasonal, Home Alone being one of the best Christmas movies of all time. Let me know what you guys, some of your like favorite holiday Christmas specific movies. This sold for 45 bucks. And I know Daniel Stern just last week, he also, I think he had an emergency, went to the hospital. So I'm not sure how he's doing, but, you know, side note, when there is a celebrity or, you know, a person of interest, a famous person, when they end up, you know, passing on, sometimes there's a spike in their memorabilia, their movies, that kind of thing. So I'm not sure if somebody bought this thinking the emergency might lead to Daniel Stern's unfortunate passing, but somebody bought it, 45 bucks, and this has sat for probably 8 months, I would say. and it is a perfect condition pop inside the box. And it's really cool that it has his autograph. 45 bucks I think is a little low, but this has sat. I think I originally put it up for like 80 or 90 bucks. But happy to see this go, wishing Daniel Stern well. And I actually did a Christmas movie actually, called Branches. It's a short film. If I can find a link, I'll put it down below in the comments. And it's a really nice family short movie. It's only like 8 minutes long. And Daniel Stern was actually the narrator for the film. So I'll put that down in the comments if you want to check out that film, Branches. It's a cool little family fun. And you'll see my face. And actually, you know, I fall on my knees in that movie, and I could have used these pants. These have been selling. This is probably the longest sitting thing in my store, quite possibly. I bought these maybe 10 months ago, and I actually took them down maybe 2 months ago after I did a video talking about how I like to get rid of stuff, and if it doesn't sell, then I take it to the flea market. And I took these down actually to bring to the flea market this Fairy Tales shampoo for, you know, I think it's for children, but you know, I have hair too, and I have a body, so I could probably use this just like a child. But this stuff, when I went to just double check on eBay, I saw that these were still selling, and it was actually just my price was too high. So when I bought these were selling for like $50 to $60 for both of them if you sold them in the set. And when I checked again, the reason they weren't selling was because I had my price too high. They sold, all that to say, they sold 25 bucks plus shipping. So these have been sitting around. I'm not sure, I could be wrong, but I think these might be the longest sitting things in my store. Let's see if I can, just like last video, only resellers have this kind of grip strength. Shout out to fellow resellers with that grip strength. So happy to see those gone. 25 bucks. And I know I'm going to get some smack talk and some people telling me how wrong I am to do this next part, talk about this next part. And that's totally fine. But then there's no way to really prove what I'm about to talk about, what I'm about to show you. It's not revolutionary. Some of you guys might be already doing this and you'd be like, yeah, no duh. And then some of you guys would be like, that's just not how you should be doing things, and that's fine. But I want to share a little bit about the shipping process I use. I'll just hop into it and talk while I'm doing. So I'm going to go ahead and just say what I'll be talking about in this next little shipping part. 75+% of everything I ship out goes in a poly bag with not much more protection than just paper. And I rarely use bubble wrap. I know bubble wrap is very popular among us resellers. I don't use bubble envelopes. That's not something I do. Anything that would typically go in a bubble envelope ends up basically getting wrapped in paper and goes in an outer like envelope type of thing. I'll show you some examples of exactly what I'm talking about. But things that are exclusions to that, like obviously anything that's super breakable, I will put in a box, something like this. But sometimes I just use paper. I rarely use bubble wrap. And as I mentioned, I know some of you guys hate that idea, and that's fair enough, but I don't get complaints. Stuff doesn't break. I prefer using wrapping like just this paper, as I also use it in combination with this stamp, which sounds like a silly reason. But this I'll probably put in a box as well, just for extra protection. It's fragile. But all this stuff, this collectibles, I will probably put in a box just to prevent, since it is a Funko, people want the packaging nice and pristine. So any kind of collectible I will put in a box. Box. This kind of thing I'll probably put in a box because, again, this could break, the caps could break. So I'll give that some extra protection in a box. But most of this other stuff is all in, this might go in a box just because it is vintage and you can't I don't want to fold it and mess it up and get it smushed in a poly bag. So this is a little abnormal, I guess. You know, the video I go to talk about how much I use poly bags and don't really rely on boxes very often. I'm using a bunch of boxes, but primarily everything goes in a poly bag. That'll go in a box as it's collectible. Don't want to damage that. But most of this stuff I just wrap in paper. All this stuff just goes in poly bags. This thing, very similar to a collectible, if not a collectible, and that will go in a box. All this other stuff I think in here, yep, this will go in a poly bag. Even this will go in a poly bag. And I know some people may disagree with that, but it saves over time, you know, not putting this stuff in a box. That could personally, I understand why other resellers might put some of these things in a box. This doesn't even go in a box because it's so light. I'll just wrap it up nicely and poly bag this sucker. And I'll show you examples. So I can understand why people prefer to put things in boxes. It's a good presentation for your buyer, your customer. So I do get it. But again, I've been doing this for going on 14, 15 years. And this is how I've always been doing things. And I don't get complaints. Things don't break. If people start complaining and things start breaking, I would certainly change up my methods. But until then, over the years, you know, if a box takes something from under a pound to over a pound, the significant cost difference adds up. You know, you're going from a max of like $6 in shipping being under a pound to immediately you're going over $7-8. So, or you're just going from like a 7-ounce package for, say, something like this. If I were to put this in a box, which might only weigh like 2 or 3 ounces, and if I wrap it up and put it in a poly bag, as I'm going to do, it'll still fall under that category of under 4 ounces for shipping. And if I put it in a box, it'll probably jump up to maybe 6 or 7 ounces, possibly even like 9 ounces, which adjusts the price upwards immediately. And it might only be, you know, a quarter, 50 cents over time, or I should say 25 cents, 50 cents, whatever the price difference is. However, over time and thousands of packages, you do the math and see how much more you're paying in shipping. Yes, it is only 50 cents. Yes, it is only a quarter, and could be a better experience for your buyer. So I certainly understand that point of view. I just don't find it necessary unless necessary, if that makes sense. So over time, I do think I've saved thousands of dollars by simply putting most of the things in poly bags. And I'll give you a few examples just so you can see. So this is a perfect example of what I'm talking about. It's more about the concept and principle rather than the item itself. This is a garage door opener. We probably all would put it in a poly bag. Maybe I'm wrong, wrapped up in paper, and it's in a poly bag. And at that point, it's 4.0 ounces. If it was 1 ounce more, which obviously I've had put it in a box, and it would have jumped up higher than this. But you probably already know, but just in case, it took me a while to actually learn this. Up to 4 ounces is one price point, then 4.1 up to 8 ounces is an additional charge, 8.1 up to 12, 12.1 up to 16. Each 4 ounces basically jumps up in a price point. So at this 4 ounce, you can see the cost here is $4.76. And if you just add 1 ounce, you can see that it is now $5.09. So I'm saving like 30 cents, a little more than 30 cents overall had it with just that 1 ounce. And then you can see, just for example, I'll say it goes up into the next tier at 12 ounces. And you can see it jumps up again to $5.86. So it's a significant bounce. And then we go up to the fourth tier, and you can see even more, which is just crazy. It jumps up really fast. So you can see why poly bags, it's not going to make a difference every time. Sometimes a poly bag might land somewhere in the middle, like it's 6, or maybe it's like 4.5 ounces, and a box only adds like 3 ounces. So you're still in the same pricing tier. However, that said, this is just an example. Being at 4 ounces rather than 5, I'm saving 30 cents on this particular package. And you put that data over the course of a week or a month or a year, or especially like your reselling career, that can add up to, and that, that's thousands of packages. You're talking thousands of dollars difference by just using poly bags. So obviously this Carhartt, you guys would obviously put that in a poly bag as well. And I literally wrap it up. I tear these pieces of paper in half for small items. And this is actually, I'm gonna fold in half to maximize paper protection. And this is all I do. And it's super quick. I grab a poly bag, and this is my stamp. I created this. So this is my store name. I have 2 different eBay accounts here. And that's the message. And I just stamp it. This is how the packages arrive in a poly bag. And why I do this stamp is because I like the idea of, having an additional like thank you in the package. And So I got that stamp because I didn't want to buy a bunch of like business cards or any kind of extra materials. And this paper, you just stamp directly on the paper, and this lasts tens of thousands. You know, when the ink goes out, you can just buy a new cartridge of ink. You know, it's like $10 or whatever. So this, I mean, I've had this thing for, I don't know, 8 years, this same one. And I just replaced the ink. And then, you know, when I'm not talking and showing, this thing takes 15 seconds to package up. And then just so I keep an eye, because I do bulk labels. So I buy all my labels at once. So I just write down that it's the Carhartt, and, you know, slap the label right over that. And then obviously things like this, like I mentioned, this is a really thick, heavy, solid mug. If it was like a piece of china or something, I probably would bubble wrap it. But I make sure to choose a decent sized box. That's another thing when not using boxes. I don't have to buy a ton of boxes. I'm still like when I was starting as a reseller, I would go out to recycle bins on recycling night and just pillage boxes from the neighborhood, or I'd go behind like strip malls, Walmarts, that kind of thing, and just go through their recycle bin. So I got a big box, so you know it'll fit, and I'll have a lot of empty space. This is a little big box. Let me see if I can find a smaller. Actually, this box is going to be much better fit, not so much excessive room. So for this, I would just loosely wrap it up. I don't even tighten it that much. Set it aside, grab that box, and put a layer on the bottom. And I buy this straight from, I buy it on Amazon, but it comes from U-Haul, and it's relatively cheap. It's like $25 for 500 sheets. And 500 sheets, you know, it lasts me quite a long time, because anything small, I rip this in half, and then, I don't know, I mean, it lasts probably 2 months or so, something like that. So, you know, now it's on the bottom, and I put one more on top. Make sure it has some room on the sides. And no bubble wrap needed. And this is completely secure. I'll shake the box at the end so you can, that's how you know when there's no movement inside. Not a peep. Just like me at 2 a.m. most days, unless I had too much iced coffee. Let's do another thing of tape. And I'll slap a fragile label on the side here. Something like, just like, voila. So that's all I need to do. We got this Bugatti shirt, and that's been hanging right here next to my river waders so I can go out and clean the river. But this has been there a long time, and I'm happy to see this go, although it's always like, it's one of those things that's been sitting here for so long. I'm just like accustomed to seeing it and kind of don't even notice it anymore. But now that it's not there, I'll probably notice like, hey, where'd that shirt go? And this took a while to sell, but very nice shirt, sold for $32 plus some shipping. And same thing, I only have like 50 cents or whatever into this, as this also came from an unclaimed or lost mail pallet. We got some Vera Wang, some fancy sheets, and this sold, I put these up for $80. Took a best offer of $70, these Vera Wang. And this one has 800 thread count. A lot of the ones I saw on eBay were like 400 or 500 queen or thread count, so they weren't quite as fancy as this Egyptian cotton. And great sale. And it's a bit heavy. Shipping will be, I think I charged $10, but it's probably going to be more like $12 to $15 to ship this, because, you know, those extra 400 threads in there add some serious weight. This thing from the summer sale, another great, you know, these vintage hats are so cool. I got all of these vintage hats in here at the same garage sale, which was actually in a video, and I barely paid. It was only like a couple bucks for each of these, and a lot of vintage starter stuff, which is really cool. And I'm surprised these other ones haven't sold. Well, the basketball season is just getting started, so these will probably sell relatively quickly. I think I have one more. This Redskins hat's getting a lot of activity, but no sale yet. But I'm sure that'll sell pretty soon. This is kind of cool. What do you guys think of this? I'm actually going to talk about this in another video, but we have to talk about that Atlanta Braves hat. But this Falcons hat sold less than I thought it would, but you know, I did buy it in the summer for just a few bucks and waited till football season. And it's a vintage starter hat. The Falcons are pretty decent this year, better than anticipated, I believe. 25 bucks plus shipping on this. So good sale, and I love that's one of my favorite things to find out in the wilds is like vintage sportswear. Also, it's just the designs are so cool. There's a lot of cool stuff nowadays, but I just love the vintage, like retro looks of this stuff. And you know, retro always comes back. It's always like cyclical, and it's just so cool. This stitching is like embalmed. It's like 3D. So it's such a cool hat. 25 bucks is too low for this. This is, if I was a Falcons fan, I would have kept this and wore it proud because it's such a cool hat. Then we got some Spode Christmas stuff. Spode is a brand to keep an eye out for. It doesn't seem to be consistent in value. Their products, some things seem to have value, and some just kind of are things you would leave behind. Really depends. I mean, it's definitely popular, but the price that things sell for seem to be a little bit all over the map. But I always look at Spode. If you see it anywhere, it's worth checking out. This sold for, I think it was 40 bucks. I'm gonna put it up on the screen, something like that, 35 bucks, 40 bucks. And this sold super fast. This was another item that I got back in January or February at a thrift store at a Christmas clearance sale. And it was like 75% off. So I only have like $4 or something into this. And I knew if I just waited, you know, a few months, put it into the goblin layer of storage and just wait till the appropriate season, and voila, here we are. And it sold super fast. Probably could have got some more money out of it as it sold super fast. 35 bucks for this is a pretty solid price, but happy to see it go, and great margins because I only paid like $4.